The only tyrant I will accept in this world is the still small voice within me. And even though I have to face the prospect of being in a minority of one, I humbly believe that I have the courage to be in such a hopeless minority. And what's really going on here? Because nothing is what we're being told. I mean, that's a given, but what is really going on here? And this is a question that I think most people ask at some stage in their lives. Indeed, it is the question that initially sends you down the rabbit hole. And there are so many rabbit holes to go down. But there is some point in most people's life where they simply look around them and say, is this all there is? There's got to be something more to this, and is everything that I've been told true? And that's what starts people off on their journey of enlightenment, if that's what you can call it. Their journey of discovery, anyway. You know, what is this place really, and how did we really get here? What are we? Where are we? Where did we come from? And the thing is, folks, with even asking a question like that, I mean, it's anybody's guess, and all we can do is speculate. But I think it's important that we do speculate because, as I said, things are certainly not the same. And this is something that I tried to touch on in the book that I put out in 2005, Earth's Forbidden Secrets, when I just pointed out in that book that everything we'd been told about history is wrong. And I make that statement with absolutely no hesitation at all, simply because when you go out and look around the world, you find that nothing can be explained by the current timeline of history that we're given. And how we got here is really a very interesting question to ponder. How we got here as far as the control system goes is, of course, someone had an idea, put it into motion, and here we are. But when you look at the control system and you look at what we've really done since the Industrial Revolution, if you will, it's really quite miraculous. It really is. Even when you look at what we've done in the last 30 or 40 years, technology has simply snowballed. Some of the technology we're using now is stuff that was never dreamt of when I was a child. It was all science fiction when I was a child. This was stuff out of Flash Gordon and bizarre comic books. But even Flash Gordon and some of the bizarre comic books didn't have the stuff that we've got now. It's really come out of nowhere, and it's snowballed to such an extreme. And many people have been asking this question, and it's so difficult to find where it comes from because of the mishmash of information that's out there for us to consume. And when you look at the growth of technology in the last 100 years, it really is quite amazing that we've managed to achieve what we've achieved, which again begs the question, where did it all come from? And if this is the case, well, again, the question is why? What's the point of hiding history? What purpose does it serve, really? And these may seem like esoteric ramblings. I mean, you might ask the question, what's the point? Who cares what history is? We're here now, let's just do the best with what we've got, and that's all very well. But, I mean, if you can't think of any really valid reason for them to hide history, well, then you have to ask the question, well, then why did they go to so much trouble to do so? There must be a reason for it, that's the thing. And that fact alone makes it important to ask the question. You know, George Orwell once said, who controls the past controls the future, and who controls the present controls the past. Perhaps there's a clue there. And if you wanted to hide history, how hard would it be? How long would it take to hide history from the entire human race? And the answer is it would take one generation. One generation to completely re-educate people into what actually happened. All you have to do is distract the generation that exists now and then teach the children something completely different. And when you look at television, you look at modern society, look at how distracted we've all become and what's been done to our children, there it is. You can see how very easily they could hide history from us. I mean, we have history books, but we don't even know how true most of them are. And let's face it, most people don't even read books anymore. Most people are in a situation where all the history they know is what they got from television. In fact, most of all information that people know about anything today, they got from television. So what did happen? And how did we get here? It's an interesting question to ponder, and in fact, asking that question when I was very young was what led me to what I'm doing now. If I'd never asked that question when I was 8 years old, I never would have researched all the stuff I'd researched, and I'd never be speaking to you on the radio now. You know, when I was very, very young and my mother told me they didn't know how the pyramids were built, it kind of sent me on my journey. And once you go down that rabbit hole of trying to figure out what happened in ancient history, it leads you down all the other rabbit holes. And in attempting to answer this question, of course, it's essential that you do go down all these rabbit holes. It's a natural course of events. But what happens is you find that all of them really lead nowhere, because you can go and find out all this information on all these different topics, and at the end of it, it becomes a very real possibility. But then you go down another rabbit hole, and that becomes a very real possibility. And what you find out at the end of it all is that you don't really know. And that's all we do know, is that we don't know. And that's why it becomes very dangerous when people start putting stuff out there and saying this is, and create an argument around it. Because all it really does is tie people up in infighting and argument, and in such an environment it becomes impossible to get any real focus on the root core of the problem, which is the system itself. The real problem is the fact that this information has been hidden to begin with. So really you've got to look at what the mechanism is that has hidden this information, because in attempting to answer the questions at this stage, all anyone can do is speculate. So see, when you really step back and look at all this and you realise that this is how it's been done, and this hiding of history has been an integral part of creating this conspiracy culture in order to hide the real conspiracy that you're living in a people farm. Whatever form it takes, we don't know, but you're living in a people farm that is managed via a system of debt slavery, whereby all the inhabitants are forced to strip mine the earth around them in order to collect the paper they need to pay to be alive. And most people know something's terribly wrong. I mean, that's why they go down the rabbit hole to begin with, but they never really look at the system that holds it all together, which is the money system. And again, many people know the financial system's all corrupt. They know about fiat currency, fractional reserve banking, how it all works, blah, 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 but they never really question the fact that even without the fiat part of the currency, just the mere fact that they have to pay to be alive to begin with, this is a real problem. This is what creates the whole mechanism to begin with. It's the catalyst, it's the glue that holds the whole thing together. And money is something that people simply take for granted, just the fact that it's there. They'd be happy if it wasn't a fiat system, but they still believe that they need money. And once it's imposed in people's thinking, it's very, very difficult to get it out of their thinking. And it may be kind of weird for people to look at things this way and to consider the fact that you're living in a people farm, but you know, whatever you want to call it, however you want to look at it, when you look at what it is, when you step back and look at the whole thing, that's what it is. It's a people farm. And we're pulling the place apart in order to support this farm that we're in. And it doesn't really make sense. None of the stuff we're doing makes any sense.